Welcome this evening to Bear Creek Park Master Plan Community Meeting number 2. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We have a really exciting agenda to go over today, so thank you for your time. First of all, let's kick off the Spanish interpretation. I'll introduce Sam Green, our interpreter.
Thank you. Bienvenidos a todos al Plan Maestro para el Parque de Bear Creek, la reunión comunitaria número 2. Para español, seleccione el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla. For Spanish, select the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, a few reminders about virtual meetings. Please keep yourself on mute throughout the presentation. There is a chat window at the bottom of your screen. Please ask your comments, questions, put those in the chat throughout the presentation. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the formal presentation of the 3 concepts, and we'll go through all your questions at that time. So please hold tight, but use that chat feature. At the end of the session, if we have time, we'll allow some raise your hand question and answer time as well, but put all your questions in the chat first. So next slide. So a quick overview of where we've been for those of you who were at our first public meeting. Thank you for joining again. And those that weren't at our first meeting, thank you for joining us today. So we started the project in January of this year to kick off the planning process for the entire park and the trail segment from Sheridan to Lowell. Our initial public meeting covered existing conditions in the park, and we had a community survey about feedback of what everyone wanted to see happen in this park and what the future of this park should be. We're at right now in the draft master planning phase. So today we will talk about 3 different concept alternatives for the presentation, and then we'll wrap up with next steps and open up our next community survey. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Nora. Are you up next?
Or did we want, I'm sorry, did we want Councilman Flynn to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Councilman Flynn, for joining us tonight, District 2. Thank you so much for your support of this master plan and this great project. So please take the floor.
Well, just for 30 seconds, Jessica, thank you. My kids played in this park. We call it the Hat Park, the Sombrero Park, back in the 80s. And it's, through this process, I am learning things that from the 80s on, I hadn't known about this jewel of a park in Southwest Denver. So it's wonderful to have it, have this process take place and to hear where people want to take it for the next generation. I'm just looking forward to hearing the discussion and whatever the community decides, finding a way to get that implemented. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, now I think it's over to Nora.
Or actually, I'll take this.
Yeah.
You don't mind. So yeah, it is, as Councilman Flynn mentioned, this is obviously a great park for the community, and it means a lot to the community. And obviously, so through this, process we've gone through so far, we've had a pretty robust community engagement process. I think some of you have been part of our other, either our steering committee or some of our focus groups. But as you can see, we've had a number of steering committee meetings, 3 to date, and a 4th one planned to go over our draft preferred master plan after this. We've conducted 3 stakeholder focus group interviews, one focus group revolving around trails and bikeways, another revolving around our recreation focus group, and then we have another ecology and natural resource focus group that we met with on site. Had a great time out there. So we've met with them each once and got some of their feedback, and we plan to meet with them all again before this process is over to look over the preferred master plan and our next step. Obviously, we're in community meeting number 2, and we do plan to have another community meeting after this where we will go over the preferred master plan with you all and give you another opportunity to provide feedback before things are a little bit more finalized and we move on to our final steps. Obviously, we've had a community survey, and thank you so much for all of you who participated in that previously. And we'll be have released another community survey. We'll be kind of releasing that today concurrently with this meeting. Hopefully get some more feedback and get some great written feedback from you all, and hopefully folks who can't attend. So please, pass along the link to folks that maybe weren't able to attend tonight, so we can get their input too. And then I think one of the more fun things we've been doing is we've had 2 pop-up events scheduled, and we've already had one, which we had a playground pop-up event with our YMCA campers in June. And that was great. And we plan to have another pop-up event to kind of share some of our final preferred master plan and engage with the community in their space once more. But as I mentioned, we had a really great time with our first pop-up event. We had about 30 or 40 YMCA campers, obviously some very little folks, as you can see in these pictures here. And we wanted to get their input, and it's, it can be difficult to engage with children. And so we had this idea, well, why don't we give everybody 4 Post-it notes, and we tell the kids, go play. And while you're playing, place a Post-it note on the things that you have, give you the most enjoyment. What are your favorite features? And so they, about 30 seconds later, we ended up with tons and tons of Post-it notes all over the sombrero slide, which was great. Great to know that even these youngsters can identify and really the sombrero slide resonates with them clearly, and it's one of their favorites. So we let everybody run and do that, and we went around and tallied up, which playground elements had the most, Post-its. Kind of, it was interesting to see where they all landed. Some being on even some of the play panels, on the play structure, or on the monkey bars, or I think they had a great time really trying to put these everywhere they could, which was really fun. And then after that, we brought them back into kind of a little picnic area here, as you can see on the right, and said, hey, here's some drawing utensils, or here's some blank paper. What pieces of the playground are missing? What would you like to see in the future of Bear Creek Park? What would be the most fun for you? And so we had all these wonderful little ideas. The little folks liking archery, liking jungle gym and kind of obstacle course type things. I mean, they were really using their imagination, and we had a great time engaging with them. And so it was I think a really successful event, and we got some really fun feedback from a group I think that's hard to get real feedback from sometimes. So it was a big success, and we had a great time. And I guess that was kind of one of our capstones to the kind of our phase 1 of outreach. And I'll let Nora take it over and kind of walk through a few of our kind of key themes and takeaways from the first phase of public outreach, and some of the desires that we got as part of that input.
Thanks, Will. So in addition to young people weighing in on the first phase of this study, we actually got quite a bit of response from the community on the survey and through our focus groups and through our stakeholder working group on regarding what's great about the park, what needs to be improved about the park, and what a future vision might include. So some of the key themes and takeaways are that the park has unique amenities that need to be celebrated and enhanced, namely the peaceful natural area and the rolling landforms, the soft surface trails on the south side of the park, the sombrero playground, as you've heard already many times tonight, is a real favorite. Access to the creek is critical, and access to urban wildlife. That makes this park actually one of the unique spaces in the city in terms of access to wildlife. However, the park is not always comfortable or welcoming, and certainly in some cases not easy to get to. There are concerns related to illegal drug use, drinking and loitering in some parts of the park, encampments and the concentration of people experiencing homelessness in certain areas of the park. There is a perception that the park can sometimes overflow with trash. It's a heavily used park, especially on weekends, and sometimes the park feels like it has a trash problem. People also wanted to see year-round access to the restrooms. There is some concern with traffic and noise, particularly given its proximity to Hamden. and with concern about water quality in the creek. There's a lot of desire to be near the creek, in the creek, on the banks of the creek, but the actual quality of the water is something that people are concerned about. And finding your way around the park and into the park can be difficult given where it is in the city and the wayfinding actually on the site. We have a couple more takeaways. So when we asked people what they would like to see, they kind of fell into these 5 categories. People would like to see a healthy park. So one that is cleaned up and where the vegetation is managed. People would also like to see more active uses, and there were a number of active uses that ended up on our list: bike trails, pump tracks, skate features, disc golf, dog park, a bigger splash park. So you can see from this list some of the things that ended up on that list. Improved passive uses also ended up in a category of its own. So places for people to congregate, to rest, to find shade, to connect with one another, to connect with the creek, to connect with paths and walk through the site. Related to some of the things that were tough, that people found to be difficult about the park, people wanted to see better access, both better accessibility from an ADA standpoint, more ways to cross the creek, and more ways to connect on paths on the south side of the park. Another thing that came up in this space of improved access is the desire for a separation between bikes and pedestrians on the regional trail, that there are a number of conflicts that occur on that shared use path. The parking lot was another item that was mentioned, that the parking lots are sometimes hard to use and could be redesigned. And then again, related to some of the points that were mentioned earlier, people would like to see better maintenance, more ranger patrols, year-round restrooms, better lighting to make the park more welcoming and feel safer. So that's kind of our jumping off point for this phase 2 that we're going to launch into next.
Thanks, Nora. I'll hand it over to Jessica if you'd like to give a little bit of an overview on kind of our guiding principles and how this kind of fits within some of the DPR's initiatives and goals right now.
Yeah, thank you, Will. So our guiding principles are really fashioned from the game plan for a healthy city, which is Denver Parks and Recreation's strategic plan. And the words highlighted in orange are our 5 pillars of our game plan for a healthy city. So adapt, diversify, grow, reinvest, and connect. We wanted to connect each of our guiding principles for this master plan to that larger plan to show how this park meets all of those requirements. So starting with adapt, we really want to preserve and enhance ecological functionality. Diversify, activate the park with new and improved use opportunities. We've heard a lot of those uses from you of what isn't there that should be there. Grow, so as we talked about access to the park, enhancing park access for local and regional park users. Reinvest, so promoting safety and security for all park users. And we also want to ensure the phased implementation is maintainable and sustainable. And then finally, connect, alleviating circulation conflicts and creating intuitive, engaging trail networks. So with that, we'll kick off the formal presentation with a slide about our adapt, how we're looking at preserving and enhancing that ecological function. Will, back to you.
Great, thanks, Jessica. And yeah, as Jessica said, starting off with kind of adapt, and as you all know, we've conducted a pretty robust first phase of analysis, really gathering data, and obviously we have a wonderful environmental consultant on our team who has already been taking kind of the next steps really as far as making real park improvements. And kind of from this analysis phase, already jumping into, well, what are some strategies and approaches for some of these maintenance actions that need to be, that we need to really kick off as far as setting us up for really looking at how we tackle ecological restoration on the site as a whole. And so taking a look at this, and I know this is maybe a little confusing to look at here, but we have a key right below. But this is really identifying areas on site where, downed or removed tree branches can be kind of thinned out in some of these areas. Looking at in these yellow zones, kind of thinning vegetation at the base of trees, thinking about sight lines, thinking about really just generally cleaning up some of these areas that need it the most. And looking at places where we could relocate some of this debris that's cleaned out of these areas in order to help kind of spur and start some wildlife habitat in some of these larger green areas you can see across the site. Another thing you'll notice on this map are these small red and blue dots, and now these are non-native tree species, kind of where they're located around the site. You can see some are clustered in some more densely wooded areas with other more desirable trees. So I think there's opportunities to obviously identify these and strategically move forward as far as where we start removals. One of the things that we've already kind of begun is, I think, is as early, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, I think you said next week, right? Next week, the Mile High Youth Corps will actually be out on site starting to implement some of these. So even as we're in our large scale master planning phase, and even midway through this bigger picture exercise, we're already identifying and acting on opportunities to come in and make these improvements on site, which is a really unique and kind of a cool opportunity with this project that we've been able to take advantage of. So as far as kind of ecological restoration and habitat creation as a whole, that's something that you'll see throughout each of these concepts, and something that is really an overarching theme that's going to help, or has been and will continue to help guide us as we continue to refine these concepts. And kind of in that same
Will,
vein,
can I interrupt you for a second? Can you zoom in just a little bit on the slides?
oh yeah, of course.
If possible. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so as I mentioned, there, from an ecological and habitat restoration standpoint, that's a theme and kind of an effort that we'll carry throughout all three concept plans that we'll show you today. And in addition to that, there are some other pieces that we feel will, based on what we've heard from you all, the community in general, and obviously through our analysis and kind of identifying priority items. These are things that you're gonna see in all three concepts. So I may not touch on these as we go through the concepts in too much detail, just because you'll kind of see them in each concept. So we'll try to focus a little bit more on what's unique about each concept as we go through. But some of these obviously overarching site improvements include, as we mentioned, ecological habitat restoration, playground updates and improvements, including the sombrero slide, which will remain, in all concepts in some form or fashion. And we can talk about that more in a little bit. Creek access improvements, really creating more opportunities to bring people to the creek and to engage with it. Water quality improvements to the existing ponds. The existing ponds really are a big asset, I think, infrastructurally on site. And they don't really serve much of a water quality purpose at the moment, but they could be improved to serve that on a kind of a light green infrastructure scale. The new sidewalk along Kenyan Avenue, that's been really identified. I think everyone that we've spoken to is in agreement that that's a big need, especially for activating that edge and giving people access from neighborhoods to the south and places where right now it's a little bit less than comfortable to walk along Kenyan if you've ever tried to do that. Trail network improvements, obviously creating kind of a hierarchy of trail systems, and we had mentioned that it's something we identified throughout our analysis process as kind of an issue out on site right now, is that there's not much of a network and a system that makes sense. Maintenance access improvements, obviously, as Nora mentioned, the sentiment that maybe this park isn't as well maintained as it could be, or it seems a little in disrepair at times, making sure that whatever we're planning sets the maintenance crews and teams up to do their job successfully, and hopefully walk that back as far as kind of that sentiment goes around this park. Regional trail use conflict mitigation, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, looking for a way to separate or at least manage in a better way pedestrian and bicycle regional trail users. And try to work that into a way that makes sense within the internal park circulation. Safety and lighting improvements at the existing underpasses. These are not really comfortable spaces right now. And that's been made pretty clear to us. So that's something that you'll see in all three concepts as well. And then obviously park access and entry gateway enhancements, really creating opportunities for people to be drawn into the site, for people to feel comfortable as they enter the site, and really get eyes, I guess, bring more attention to this park and make more people aware of it. So yeah, those are kind of things that you'll see through all three of these, and I'll dive into our first concept here. Oh, and now that's gigantic. Bear with me. Okay, so our first concept we're calling wandering trails. We'll kind of start here to the north side, the more active side of the site, and we'll kind of work our way south. So as you can see here, obviously we talked about parking lot improvements. Utilizing most of the existing spaces for parking, looking at opportunities to retain parallel parking, and then creating similar to what we already have, but reconfigured from a functionality perspective, smaller parking node that focuses more on ADA parking. Currently, there are only 4 ADA spots total between both parking lots on site. So making sure we're providing all that we need to for anyone with accessibility needs. As you can see here, looking at improving the existing and expanding the existing playground in place within this concept, and creating more of a formalized arrival and kind of entry area space that could also act as a bit of whether it's covered gathering spaces, picnic tables, just a place to be a little bit more activated and create that kind of sense of arrival as you get into the park. Obviously, looking at retaining the multi-purpose field area, and the biggest thing you'll notice within this concept is the relocation of the regional trail to the south side of Bear Creek here. So, obviously in doing that with this configuration, we would need to add a new regional trail bridge. And this is kind of one of the locations that seems suitable from our kind of large scale big picture analysis thus far. Looking at retaining the existing pedestrian bridge here and replacing the existing regional trail bridge, which was already undersized and is nearing the end of its life, with a pedestrian scale bridge, as to not encourage bicyclists to go the old way, but keep that to a more pedestrian scale, but obviously retain that connection, because it is important to connecting folks in the Westbridge neighborhood from their access points directly into the north side of the park. So that's kind of our biggest movement as far as kind of relocating the trail and how that impacts the north side of the park within this concept. As you can also see here, we're proposing some of these nodes where we saw opportunity to bring people a little closer to the creek, allow them to engage with it. And as we move into the south side here, one of the things you'll notice within this concept is and as we work through the other concepts to kind of talk through those, is that this one really, and this is why we call it wandering trails, is it really has the least amount of activation on the south side. Looking at opportunities to locate nature play in maybe small gathering areas around the ponds, and obviously, as I mentioned, looking at kind of some water quality improvement opportunities, but focusing the activity really around kind of this central area where the ponds are, and allowing the rest of kind of this to be these wandering trails that are more passive in nature, but also can allow you to engage with the wetlands, engage with some of the different habitats across the site, and obviously strengthen these connections through this hierarchy of trail systems to the YMCA and entry point that's over there. We did mention kind of some of these entry feature opportunities, and you'll see these kind of stars throughout the next few concepts as well. But again, to kind of reinforce the least amount of activation here to the south, and really focusing on more passive engagement with that side of the park within this concept. And you'll kind of see some very, very basic idea present imagery here. They'll give you a better sense for what we're talking about as far as kind of an entry, small plaza area, some of these creek access nodes. How do we get people down to the creek in a safe way to engage? Looking at some of these other opportunities for our entryway. And obviously, when we speak of nature play, that can mean a lot of different things. And I think at this high level, we want it to mean, we want it to be able to mean a lot of different things. So, just looking at even small opportunities for nature play could be really fun. And I think the one thing I did skip over, which will be on all three concepts as well, is kind of an overlook gathering space along Kenyan. You know, there are some really great vantage points from here, and you get to kind of take the whole site in. So we saw that as a big opportunity. Oh, and I did forget to mention, please, we encourage you all to add any questions to the chat as I'm going through these. I know I'm going through them pretty quick, so feel free, any questions, comments, whatever, out into the chat. We can certainly dive in once we're finished here. So concept B, we're calling the discovery loop concept. Starting in kind of the north side of the site, you'll notice that this is configured fairly different from the last concept. You know, still looking at similar parking configuration. One idea that we do want to explore is angled parking. We could increase the number of spaces, as well as provide somewhat of an automotive or a physical barrier. We know there's a lot of issues with people driving onto the current field in its existing condition. Not too many things keeping people from that. So being smart with how we configure parking and you know, creating a bit of a barrier there is the idea, and increasing our number of parking, because we've heard that it does get very filled up on weekends and times they have events at this field. But as you can see here, we saw an advantage to in this concept, moving the entry, or kind of the entry area and the traditional playground area, up closer to the actual entry from Raleigh Street. The idea behind that being that, you know, right now you kind of arrive into a parking lot, and just because of our spatial constraints, there's not a lot we can do about that, but there is an opportunity to, you know, create something monumental or some kind of monumentation in this entry area where you feel like you're arriving into a space and not just a parking lot. It gives you an opportunity to arrive and maybe even drop folks off, kind of loop around. But we saw an advantage to that. You'll also notice a new four-season restroom within this location. And, you know, additionally, looking at how this playground, where this falls in relation to kind of the bigger movement in this concept, which is, as you can see, keeping the regional trail in somewhat of its current alignment, but really adding in these speed reduction measures. Looking at this, not just keeping the trail as is, but really maybe it's in the same location, but it would be obviously up to trail standards for DPR's regional trails, but also being really, you know, we have to be really innovative as to how we implement these speed reduction measures throughout the segment to make sure that we're reducing those conflicts. And moving the playground over into this area is part of that potential conflict reduction, right? As folks would cross the trail bridge, you know, they would kind of go right by the playground area rather than running, you know, really along the full edge, which is kind of the existing condition. As you can see here, kind of working our way to the west, where the existing playground area is, you know, our idea here would be that, you know, maybe the sombrero slide remains in place and we create kind of a nature play and picnic zone around it, you know, and that way it's still, you know, it's still an active feature that you can engage with as a visitor, but, you know, maybe serves a little bit of a different purpose and function. And maybe there's an opportunity to create something in the new traditional playground area that, you know, pays respects a little bit to the original sombrero hat, or celebrates that and kind of elevates that as an identifying feature even a little bit further. And obviously over here, kind of within this little yellow zone too, looking at that entry area concept as kind of a secondary entry area, and, you know, perhaps even replacing the existing restroom in this location too. So, you know, keeping the option open if we wanted to implement a four-season, to also say, well, maybe there's a need for, you know, another restroom facility over within this area. So moving south, kind of into our open space area here, obviously with keeping the regional trail on this side of the creek, you know, this would probably, some of these trails would be retained or be retained as soft surface trails. One of the things we did highlight within this concept that's a little bit different as far as trails go is that, you know, within the previous concept, our kind of arterial trail here in blue, we had proposed that as potentially soft surface, you know, but obviously still stabilized and maintenance accessible. But in this one, we're looking at, you know, potentially seeing what people or maintenance folks and other people feel about a hard surface trail. You know, these arterial trails really being the only hard surface trails that we would propose in this concept to the south. And to kind of get back to the discovery loop concept and where that really comes from, you know, within our last concept, obviously keeping things a little bit more focused around the ponds in the central area. I think taking a similar approach is what we're doing here. still keeping things a little bit tight, but then looking at opportunities out kind of within the wild, within the natural area along these trails to implement things like public art, right? Maybe it's an art walk or a story walk. Looking at these moments of discovery, which could be everything from, minor nature play to, interpretive educational signage about the environment, about the habitat, looking at ways to get people to stop, to kind of stop and enjoy these little moments as they're kind of walking through. And then as far as kind of the loop goes, and I know it's a very hard to follow loop, but the idea being that, creating some of these meandering trails that link up with more primary soft surface pathways, maybe through or around wetlands, gives you an opportunity to add some mileage in there for folks who like to use this part of side of the site for a bit of exercise or, longer, more leisurely walks kind of around this area. And you'll notice too, another thing that we have that's new to this concept from the previous is this bike skills and pump track area. This zone kind of behind the YMCA right now is fairly underutilized and doesn't see a lot of eyes, doesn't see a lot of attention. So finding a way to activate that space, and obviously, provide this park with another amenity that will draw more of a regional user as well. And I believe that is just about it, but we did want to show you all, just some more images based on, what we think nature play could look like. In Denver, we've seen more and more pump tracks. It's something a lot of different folks, bikers, skateboarders, a lot of adventure sports folks really like these. And in Denver, they are typically asphalt, so that's kind of what's shown here is an asphalt pump track. Looking at these art nodes, opportunities to really engage community artists and get them involved and have places for their work to be displayed within the park could be a really great and special opportunity for the community. Looking at the splash pad, that's another piece that I think, if we were to relocate the traditional playground, the splash pad is really loved. And so recreating or, kind of creating even a larger splash pad, that's something we heard from the community that a larger splash pad would be ideal. So look at that opportunity for our new playground area. And then kind of one of the things that I did skip over a little bit was, there is an opportunity with the steep grades in here to create some sort of small, maybe 30 to 40 person size amphitheater space that could, be made of natural materials and really blend within this side of the park, but provide, maybe an opportunity for environmental education sessions. Really, again, looking at small ways to start to activate this side, the south side of the park. Which is really kind of within this concept B is our mid-level of activation, kind of within that south side. All right, and our final concept C, adventure skills. And as you can see up to the north, this configuration is a lot more similar to the concept that we did just go through. The main difference being that we are proposing, again, relocating a regional trail to the south side of the creek within this concept. So, again, really separating those users from our internal circulation at the north side here. Still maintaining, obviously, these kind of creek access nodes and, really allowing people to engage with the creek kind of through this really nice passive wooded space here. Again, looking at fourth season restroom, and we do have our splash pad called out here. And one of the things that we thought was interesting with this concept, and as we were kind of brainstorming and talking about different types of activity and activation, maybe looking at some hard surface courts, handball or basketball. I think there's an opportunity here maybe to implement something like that and have that as a regional draw as well. Again, even though we are relocating the regional trail to the south side with a new bridge, looking at, still the same kind of bridge replacement on a pedestrian scale and width. And as we move into the south side, you'll, I think, start to get that, this is our most activated concept. As you can see here, we do still have, again, some of the same nature play and gathering area kind of focus nodes within kind of our water quality pond area, you could call it. And then as you kind of make your way out, we looked at an opportunity, we heard some folks mention fitness stations, mention using the south side of the park for, physical exercise and activity. And we thought, well, what could we think about, or what could we do that could, kind of enhance their experience as a user that uses this for exercise. And we thought maybe there's this really cool opportunity to bring in nature fitness stations, which, a lot of times you see fitness stations that are, very metal, very mechanical. And, I think using wooden materials, using materials that fit within this site could be a cool way to add in small nodes around this trail that could provide some, some additional physical exercise opportunities for folks. As we make our way to the west here, you'll notice that we do have the bike skills course identified within this area. And you'll notice too that this concept shows an additional parking area just south of the bike skills course. We have heard from maintenance staff that folks will park in the maintenance facility sometimes and along the roadway. I think it's not very clear for folks that you can park in the YMCA parking lot to access this park. And the entry point is not really very clear for folks either in its current state. So, providing this secondary parking along Kenyan not only, I think, helps, activate this edge of the park, in addition to our overlook area and existing parking, but will help alleviate some of the parking concerns for maintenance folks, as well as when the YMCA lot is full, when they have events going on in that existing field. And I think, probably our most out of the box feature to this plan is our archery range that we have here over behind the YMCA. And now that's something that, was mentioned as a desired feature for this area of Denver within and I'm gonna ask Jessica, I'm gonna ask you to say the title of this master plan because it is kind of long and I always butcher it.
Yeah, our outdoor adventure and alternative sports master plan, which is running concurrent to this master plan. That was one of the key highlights that Southwest Denver was interested in. So we're testing it out here to see how this community reacts to that specifically.
Mm-hmm. And really, as far as kind of the archery range and how it would function, that's something that we still are kind of talking to folks and brainstorming on. And would it be kind of a reserve space? How would that kind of all work logistically? But I think that's something we're talking through, and it could provide a really cool opportunity for these YMCA summer campers as well to have their own programs that they run kind of at this range. And obviously, as I mentioned, we all of the kids that we talked to, it seemed like there were at least a handful of them who were all about the archery, which was really funny considering their young age. But we thought this could be a really cool opportunity here, and a way to activate kind of an underutilized space. And I believe that's just about it. I think, as we look at these nodes and the level of activation on this side with some smaller gathering spaces, I think that's the biggest takeaway with this concept is, as I mentioned, Concept A really has the least, the lightest touch, the least level of activation on the south side, more passive engagement. This is more active engagement. It is still a blend of passive and active engagement, but this is kind of the other end of the spectrum. And just to kind of give you an idea, this is kind of where our head was at when we're thinking nature fitness stations. So we're not thinking, anything crazy, but these kind of small opportunities for interaction. And as far as a bike skills course, that's kind of a foreign concept to some folks, but it is, what it really is it's a place to learn mountain bike skills at different levels. Everyone from a person who's just been on their bike to a more advanced rider who wants to practice specific challenges. This has kind of different levels of obstacles that are, more or less optional for any of the riders. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, kind of what that's about a little bit. And then in talking about kind of our handball and basketball opportunities, they're kind of great examples, I think, and a lot of them all over Denver of kind of these sport courts that are multi-striped, multi-purpose, and really allow folks to kind of choose their own adventure as far as sporting goes, and providing even more opportunities within a more limited space. But yeah, I think that's just about it for us, and we could probably jump into a few of the chat questions if that sounds good to everyone. Jessica, was there anything else that I might have overlooked or skipped over?
I think you covered everything pretty well, so we'll see what comes up in the discussion.
One comment about safe access to the park from Bonnie, I believe. Oh, Louise. And she says more for safe access to the park, please include crossing over 285 from Knox by the 7-Eleven, Harvey Park South neighborhood. More people could walk or bike to the park from there. If it was safer to cross Knox and 285, Knox is getting harder and harder to safely cross. There's no crosswalk. And I use the access to the park from that direction, but I've stopped because it is too unsafe.
I'll jump in and respond to that question, Gretchen. So Knox and Lowell kind of are the same road. Lowell turns into Knox and then back into Lowell. It's a little weird. We are looking at the trail from that intersection all the way to Sheridan. So this is within our purview of this master plan. So we are looking at those improvements. The tricky part is that the Denver County boundary stops sort of just west of the Lowell intersection. So that is technically within the city of Sheridan. We are working very closely with City of Sheridan planning staff because they will be initiating a study for the Bear Creek segment through their city next year. So it's really exciting timing that we were able to partner with them and look at those improvements. So I have been talking to the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure about their bikeways program and how we can make these recommendations through our plan to help emphasize to Sheridan that these connections are very important.
Stacy wants to know if the regional trail will be rebuilt regardless of which side of the creek it is located on.
That's the general design intent right now. Yes, we want to build it up to our current width standards, which it does not currently meet.
And just a comment from someone in Westbridge, JP says, I live in Westbridge. I like a lot of what is being proposed.
I did see JP use the heart emoji on a couple of the items. I think the archery range and maybe the fitness station discussion. So use those emojis. I love seeing those.
Awesome. Thanks for your input, JP.
Any other questions before we move into polling?
This is, well, it says Sue on my my picture, but my name is John Scoville, and I was just curious if they're going to improve. I use this park a lot. I come from down Raleigh Street, and when you get to that little parking lot that's at the entrance, there's no real safe way to walk. So I was wondering if they're going to continue and have a sidewalk, at least on one side, all the way till it reaches the park. Right now, you're walking with behind cars a lot, and there's no real, if there was a sidewalk maybe closer to the creek on the east side of all that, just continue right, that would be a lot safer, I would think, in the long run. So.
Yeah, I was gonna, it looks like our diagram kind of skips that connection, but we are definitely considering that, making that connection, and we know how you kind of get dumped off by that sidewalk right there and have to just make your way through the sea of parking.
Yeah, so we certainly see the need, and I think, you know, there are a lot of really interesting and innovative strategies we can take, you know, or kind of imply within this master planning process. You know, things to look at as they get into the implementation phases, like you know, even things as simple as looking at paving material changes so that cars know that really this is a pedestrian space. You know, kind of having these cues and signals that hopefully help motorists to recognize that this is a shared space and not just their space.
Louise says, I like many of the ideas for more active engagement, but I worry it takes away from the natural space and wildlife. That is such a unique and cherished feature of the park.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. And that's actually, one of the things we really wanted to get at today too, and we'll have some polling questions about this in a little bit, but what level is appropriate? And these are the kind of things we really need to hear from you all to help us move forward, to find that right balance, right? That's very helpful. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, this is John again, up here in the corner. One thing, I'm a avid biker, and to me, the two plans to have the bike path on the south side of the creek are definitely the best, because all over the city, if there's areas where there's a bike path and a lot of playgrounds and picnicking, I slow down, but a lot of people don't. And I don't know how you're going to get the guys that think they're on the Tour de France to slow down. But if it's over here, it's going to be a lot safer for all the kids and the people picnicking. So it's just my thought. So.
Great, thank you.
And Bonnie wants to know when the bridge will open again. And
Yeah,
thanks for-
great news, Bonnie. The bridge is open now. We did reopen it. It was a temporary closure. We used a very extreme side of caution when we closed it temporarily because it was inspected and showed some structural damage. Upon further inspection, the damage was not as severe as the initial estimate because the water level was so high, we couldn't do a full inspection of those piers. So the bridge is open now and will be open hopefully until we replace it.
And it looks like JP has a question. For the wildlife trails that are unmarked and unclear, how will they be identified? Name the smaller trails after some historical significance. I think that's a really cool idea. And I think, using strategies with wayfinding and signage. Also, obviously as you said, the existing trails are unmarked and unclear. And, a lot of those are even just social trails at this point. So looking at, taking steps to, dissuade people from creating their own social trails by implementing really a hierarchy of trail systems where, you can kind of see these darker, even in concept C, kind of these more bold brown lines, creating that hierarchy where maybe that's a certain width and that kind of is more of an arterial piece. And then these smaller trails are maybe a smaller width and kind of wind throughout, but making sure that everything, doesn't dead end, that things really loop you back around and that where you are in the park. Based on, I think even things like small mile markers that you see on trails sometimes, I think taking some of these strategies, putting together kind of a toolkit for this master plan is going to really be, kind of helpful once they go into implementation phase to make sure that we're getting, doing justice to the wayfinding, because it is easy to get lost on the south side of this park right now. And I think that's a big thing that needs to be tackled.
And he also agrees that the trail is safer for bikes on the other side. But is there a plan for the trailway between Westbridge and the park? The pavement is really rough, and is there coordination between our HOA and the park? Jessica, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, yeah. So in these plans, it's not clearly identified whether we will replace those or not, but as maintenance requires, these are park walks and park trails, so they will be replaced kind of long-term with a phased implementation. And definitely we want to coordinate fully with Westbridge. We know those are very important access points, so we definitely don't want to take those away from your community. Your community was literally planned to have these connections, and those are super important to keep that access.
Great, well, welcome to Denver, JP. I don't know if you've just moved to Denver or just this area, but.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. All great input so far, everybody, and great questions. Thank you. Jessica, should we, do you think is it time to release one of the polls?
Yeah, let's jump into polls and keep asking your questions, everyone in the chat.
Yeah, please continue. But this first poll we're going to launch here, I'll go on and do that now. And we just want to know, just based on, what you've seen and these presentations that I know were really high level and I went through kind of quickly, but you know, which concept master plan alternative do you like the most? Just kind of seeing these, which are you the most drawn to? You know, our concept A, which I'll go back and flip through these real quick. Concept A, you know, is wandering trails. Obviously, the lesser activation to the south side, similar to existing configuration for the north side as far as sequence of spaces goes.
But moves the bike trail.
Yes, but moves the bike trail. Concept B, which keeps the bike trail in place, and you know, obviously not as it is, but you know, looking at redoing the bike trail, but keeping it at least on the north side of the creek. A bit more of kind of that arrival sequence that could be really advantageous within this concept, with the entry area here and the playground kind of really at the front door of the park a little bit more, and a bit more activation to the south side, but still not, you know, to the level of kind of our final concept. And then concept C, which, you know, again, is very similar to the north side as our previous concept. However, it does have the regional trail relocated to the south. Our archery range and bike skills course, and the additional parking along Kenyan also is only on this concept here. It could be really advantageous. And you know, and obviously with these concepts, it's not a pick one and we lose everything else. You know, this is a let's get your input, see what you like, and this is how we'll build our preferred concept is based on this feedback that you guys give us and what things you're most drawn to within each concept.
She wants you to show A one more time.
Yes, of course. And here, let me, I'll even kind of try to make it a little bit larger, so hopefully you can see that a bit better. Oh, that's too large. There you go.
Sue asks, are there any plans by the highway department to add sound barriers on 285?
Not that we know of, but once we finalize our concept, it may be worth us asking that if it's something they would ever consider, or cost share with the Parks Department. We've talked about that because we do understand that traffic noise is a challenge at this park. So no promises at this point, but we're looking to open that conversation.
All right, has everyone had a chance to weigh in on the poll? We'll leave it open for just a little bit longer here. 15 more seconds or so. All right, looks like we've got everybody. All right, and I'll share these results with you all here. Can everyone see that? Okay, great. Great, so it looks like that concept A, our wandering trails concept, came in at 20% of the folks saying that that was their favorite. Concept B, we had one person or 10%, the discovery loop. And then our concept C, our adventure skills, came in 7 out of 10. So 70% of folks said that that was their favorite. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for weighing in on that one. Wonderful. Okay, it looks like we got another question here. Any plans for a small off-leash dog park fence? And now, maybe Jessica, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Sue. Your name's not Sue. Oh,
John.
we have looked at that. The city, John. Thank you for the reminder. The city has a dog park master plan that has a series of criteria of where we situate dog parks. We have evaluated this park for the suitability based on those criteria. Due to all the natural resources in this park, the wetlands, the floodplain, the creek itself, the adjacent residences, some of the sensitive habitat, there's not a lot of space actually available that meets the criteria for a dog park, but we know that is something that is a gap in this area of town. So right now our concepts are not proposing that, but it is something that we know there is a demand for and maybe something that is considered. And Will, if you want to talk about our diagram at this point.
Yeah, I was going to see if you wanted me to share that, and I'll give me 1 second and I'll try to share that piece here. Okay, are you all seeing this dog park diagram?
There it is, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see here, kind of in the upper left corner, these were kind of the unfavorable site conditions for a dog park as identified in the latest update, the 2019 update to the dog park master plan. And as you can see here, we really, the only spaces that don't fall kind of within these undesirable buffer zones or locations are kind of these very small white slivers. You can kind of see up near the entrance to Raleigh Street. And can you all see my cursor? I'm not sure if this,
Yes,
okay, oh, perfect. So this kind of zone here and this zone here, because obviously kind of within red here, we have a 100-foot buffer of school, playground, or rec facility, which is kind of what you see in these small red zones here. The larger piece to this that's really inhibiting us from being able to do this is actually the 100-year floodplain, which you can see in this kind of dark blue outline. It really encompasses most, a majority of the site, especially on that northern side. A lot of that already is in the floodplain. And then to the south side, kind of these located in, in these native grass areas. I think sometimes dog parks can be a little problematic from a runoff perspective. And as we're trying to kind of establish and maintain native plant species and habitat zones, it's a little less than favorable, especially considering our wetland areas too, which also are kind of a no-go. So it's we've certainly dove in to see where everything or where things could fall if we tried to explore it, but it really is just very, very limited based on our constraints for this site, unfortunately. And I'll go back to sharing our other.
Like a teacup poodle dog park.
Yeah. Teeny tiny dogs only. All right, well, we did have another polling question. Jessica, if you're okay with me going on sharing that.
I was just going to comment, I think it's worth noting that a lot of our feedback about dogs from the first survey, a lot of people said they like just walking with their dogs on the trails, that it's more like hiking kind of natural dog experience versus an actual dog park. So, based on that feedback, there is demand for a dog park, but I think more people just like that natural experience with their dog.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said too for an opportunity like this to have your dog on leash, right? Whereas I know I have, as we all do, so many friends and family members with dogs, and some of them aren't the most social. So opportunities for folks to get out in the city with their dog and feel comfortable on leash, is another thing to think about. All right, and so we're going to release our second community poll here. Let me just navigate to a graphic that will help us to take a look. So we wanted to ask you all about activating the south side of the park, and I know we've already received some comments on this. I'll go on and launch this poll here. But obviously, A, B, and C concepts really propose these varying levels of activation within the open space areas on the south side of Bear Creek. And we just wanted to see, which level of activation do you all feel is most appropriate for the south side? So obviously you can kind of see all three of our concepts here, a little bit easier to relate to each other on one screen. I know they're kind of small. I'll zoom in just a bit. But what are you more drawn to? What do you think is really more appropriate? And on it, obviously, any comments or questions in the chat, feel free to weigh in there too.
Our images are messed up, I believe. Concept B is shown at the bottom.
Oh,
and
I apologize.
Concept C is shown in the upper right.
I apologize, you all. This should actually be C, and this should actually be B. If that's not, just trying to confuse you here.
Well, concept C has the bike skills and the archery activation. Not sure if you can undo your poll if you chose.
Yes, I will end the poll.
You
and
chose the
resubmit.
wrong one.
Sorry, let me redo this poll because I mislabeled these. My apologies. Relaunch poll. Yes. Okay. Let's try this again. So it actually goes concept A, concept C, and then B down below. And again, sorry for the confusion there.
Well, good thing. You still like C. Okay.
And for this question, ignore your preference on the regional trail on the north side of the park and really just focus on that south side level of activation.
Mhm.
We'll get to the north side after this.
All right, looks like we got full participation on the poll, so I'll go on, oh, even more. It says 100% of folks answered and someone else was able to answer. So we'll give it 10 more seconds. All right. Okay, we'll go on and end this poll and I'll share these results with you all here. All right, so looks like concept A, the wandering trails concept, kind of our least level of activation, received one vote, 9% of the votes. Concept B, our discovery loop concept, which is kind of that mid-level activation, 6 votes out of 11, so 55%, highest number of votes on that one. And then concept C, our adventure skills are the most activated level concept, 4 out of 11, so 36%. All right, thank you all so much for weighing in on that poll. And yeah, any other thoughts or comments? Because we could go on, Jessica, and kind of release our next poll that talks a little bit about our the trail alignment preference.
Yeah, I don't see any new questions in the chat, so let's keep with the polls.
Sounds great. Okay. So as you can see here, and as we kind of described as we were going through the concepts, you know, really our 2 major options leaving the trail to the north side, and the existing alignment, but with improvements, obviously, and traffic reduction, traffic calming, speed reduction measures, or relocating the trail to the south side of Bear Creek, you know, which would involve the introduction of a new bridge crossing more to the west of Bear Creek within this segment, but obviously still keeping or replacing, once it's reached the end of its life, the existing regional trail bridge with a more pedestrian scale trail bridge. And I'll go on and launch this poll. All right, so which of these 2 trail alignments do you prefer? You know, the regional trail alignment to the north, or relocating the regional trail to the south? Again, another additional crossing of Bear Creek being involved with that one. Zoom in here a little bit, just in case. It's a little hard to read. We'll give everybody about 25, 30 more seconds.
Okay. Do we want to come back and address the pickleball?
Oh, let's see that.
Let's
Yes.
close out this poll question and then we can go back to the chat question.
Don't forget.
Okay, 5 more seconds for anyone who has not answered yet. All right, we'll go on and end this poll here, and I will share these results with you all. Okay, so again, which of the 2 proposed Bear Creek Regional Trail alignment alternatives do you prefer? And keeping the current alignment to the north, received 2 votes, or 18% of the respondents, and relocating the regional trail to the south of Bear Creek, 9 out of 11, or 82% of respondents favored that. Thank you all for responding to that. I'll stop sharing this. Okay, and then yeah, so back to pickleball, Jessica, if you want to touch on that really quick.
Yeah, so as part of our existing conditions study at the beginning of this master planning process, we looked at all of the amenities in the adjacent parks in Southwest Denver. And as someone mentioned in the chat, there are very, very new pickleball courts at Bear Valley Park, which is just west of Sheridan, up Bear Creek a little ways. So those are already in the vicinity in this area. So we were not considering adding additional courts to this park.
Jessica. Okay, we'll move on to our final polling question here, which really is talking about the playground location options that we showed, and just we want to see what you all, how you all feel about these. I want to launch this poll. So, would you rather see the playground improved in its current location, or are you open to the playground being relocated to the east side of the multi-use field? Obviously bringing it a little bit closer to that arrival point from Raleigh Street and kind of more the front door of the park, if you will.
And the caveat note at the bottom.
Yes, yes, and just to reinforce, we are in no way, shape, or form trying to imply that the sombrero slide will be removed. The idea is that, it is such an important piece to this park, but the idea being that we would, we could either leave it in place and improve it, reconstruct it, or, I think we have some other options to, like I mentioned before, maybe even keep it in place and add a new sombrero type element within the new playground that, that kind of complements and plays with that, and really helps even further reinforce this idea of the kind of the history and the culture and character of this park and the community it represents. All right, we'll leave this poll question open for another 20 seconds or so. All right, about 5 more seconds. Great, okay, I'll go on and end this poll now. Share these results with you all. Okay, so again, would you rather see the playground improve in its current location or be relocated to the east side of the multi-use field? It looks like we have 6 respondents that prefer improving the playground in its current location, so 60% of respondents. And 4 respondents, or 40% of the total, prefer relocating the playground or are open to the idea of relocating the playground to the east of the multipurpose field. Awesome. Thank you all for weighing in. And I'll keep that up for just another second before stopping. Okay. All right. And that was really that was the last of our polling questions, but Jessica, was there anything else or anyone else, if you have any questions or comments or thoughts or ideas to put in the chat, please go ahead. We've got plenty more time to chat with you all and to kind of, I think we're open to ideas. So any good thoughts, go on and chat it.
Or John, are you trying to talk? Oh, sorry.
Well, I suppose I have a question for everyone that maybe you could throw answers in the chat too. But I just wanted to see how you all feel about, do you all think it's necessary, or how do you feel about the additional parking lot along Kenyan that we were showing in Concept C? Obviously we've had some good, excuse me, I'm sorry, this is probably glitching on your screen because these PDFs are different sizes. Give me 1 second and I'll get to this plan. But what do you all think about that? Any thoughts or concerns or ideas kind of about including that secondary parking location? Stacy says, yes, it will help activate that side of the park. And Luis says, did you say an idea was to add some nature play options mixed in the south side of the parking or the park along the trails? Yes, yeah, I think they're, we did show these, and I think, obviously with bubble diagrams and at this level of detail, sizing is a little, up for interpretation. But we did look at, some opportunities to create a little bit more formal nature play, but I think there are also opportunities for some of these moments of discovery or these little nodes kind of along the trail to have features that are more engaging, but maybe not necessarily play to the level of needing safety surfacing, but things to engage with and kind of have fun with. Similar to, maybe even something as minimally impactful as this. Or even, there was another good image we had with
The kids in the culvert.
yes, the kids in the culvert. Something that is play, but isn't necessarily a fall surface type of play. And I see JP says parking is good as long as there's safe lighting in those areas. I think that's a great point that making sure that we have the right level of security, as kind of a standard minimum requirement for these new spaces is a great thought. And Councilman Flynn says there's an old mini amphitheater area just east of the YMCA field that could be used for nature classes, especially use. And Councilman Flynn, after you mentioned that, when we were out on site with the kids the other day, I actually hiked over there and found exactly what you're talking about. And it was a little overgrown. I kind of had to weed whack to get back there. But it's a great location, and it's really kind of right behind this. It really is right behind the backstop of the existing field. And so that's another something that we've had kind of in the back of our minds too is, and I don't think we show it in concept A, but we did show a little bit of a gathering node here. And I think that, realistically kind of using that similar space, because you do feel like you're not, you're behind the field and you're pretty close to the YMCA, but you do feel like you're out in it, right? So it's a really cool space and just far enough away, but just close enough to make you feel comfortable probably managing a group of 20 kids while you're out there.
Getting mostly positive feedback on the parking. So,
Great.
yes,
Awesome.
because it will activate that side of the park,
Mhm.
improve access, and make it get used more.
Awesome. Okay, John says, if the playground is expanded, where it is, will there be an entrance area near the Raleigh Street entrance? I guess if it's expanded in its current location, I think talking about and what John had brought up earlier, making sure that we do have adequate and safe and comfortable pedestrian and bike connections through Raleigh Street that actually get you into the park and don't just dump you here, I think will be imperative to successfully keeping the playground where it is and also improving it and making it more of a draw, I think. But that's a great point. Creating that access and making sure that that's really solid will be very important in that configuration. And JP says update RTD stops to reflect the park routes 36 and 51. Now JP, I don't have my analysis map up here. Stops 36 and 51, are those along Kenyan?
I think one is on Kenyan and one is on Raleigh Street. There's a bus stop on Raleigh and Dartmouth, I believe.
Okay. And that is one thing that we did here. And I'm blanking on if it was our steering committee or if it was the last public meeting, but we had one gentleman say, how can you have you have these bus stops along Kenyan, but there's no accessible route from the bus stop to anywhere within the park. So really thinking about how we look at these existing bus stops and that sidewalk along Kenyan, really creating formalized accessible routes into the park is going to be very important. And I think it's something that we'll certainly be addressing kind of with the final master plan and our recommendations. Awesome. Thanks, JP. Well, I guess one more question for everyone. Just thinking about the existing picnic area, and I'm sure a lot of you visited this area. It isn't a great grove of trees. It's more dispersed picnic tables, so not necessarily ADA accessible from a technical standpoint. But it seems this whole area gets a lot of use, and we have identified it in all three concepts as an area that we'd like to make some improvements. Do any of y'all have any thoughts about that area, or anything in particular you think could be really helpful to take that space to the next level from a usability or a functionality standpoint? Or just general, how it feels to be in that space. Any thoughts or comments on that? We have heard in the past, that there is a bit of an issue right now with folks driving from the parking lot, driving over to, through kind of down the regional trail, and looping around to drop things off. So, proximity to the parking lot, is kind of an issue, and it's not really a super easy one to solve, I think, because it is so tucked away here in the corner. And, we don't necessarily want to bring automotive traffic in and create more conflicts. So, I just curious if anybody had any thoughts on that, or experiences of their own kind of within that space.
This is John. I know during the pandemic and all, they had closed off most of the parking areas, especially the ones to the west side of the park. And they put some big trees across the parking lot, but they also had some barriers to keep people from driving into the park. But I don't know, I can't remember if they had anything set up for the maintenance people or not, but that would be an idea just to keep people from driving in there, so.
Yeah, thanks, John. And that's a great point, and something that other folks have brought up too is that it's very easy to drive into the field right now. And that we need to be really strategic, I think, with how we address that, because it's not easy to keep people out, but it is easy to encourage people, I think, or easier to encourage people to stay out. And there's maybe no magic bullet for it, but I think we definitely got some ideas like this angled parking that will help keep kind of folks out, or maybe some reconfiguration of the entry area, kind of create some separation. I think there's some good strategies to explore there, but it seems to happen quite often.
Any more questions in the chat?
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like we have any more questions, but does anybody have any comments or anything else that maybe we didn't touch on too much, or you might want to hear a little bit more or learn a little bit more about from us while we're here?
This is John again. The only comment I'd make is having the playground on the far west side. If there's not going to be, like if they adopt this plan that we're looking at now, but have the playground to the west, is there going to be picnic areas over there besides just the one pavilion? Or there's a couple of tables over right next to the playground, but
yeah, there's that small picnic area over here. Yeah, I think that's something that we've kind of identified. There is that existing shelter too that's just across from the parking lot from the playground right now, and looking at opportunities to kind of either replace that with the more formalized entry area that could have more picnic kind of features to it, or within our one of our other concepts is actually looking at keeping that shelter area as a picnic zone, and maybe just replacing the shelter or kind of making some upgrades to that space that make it more conducive for picnicking, because there are some great trees right around over there too, right? So there's a good amount of shade even without some of the structures over there, because it is in the floodplain, I guess. So as we're looking at opportunities for that space, we probably don't have as much of an opportunity to put a new structure in within that floodplain area. So, looking at how we can activate that space and still provide enough picnic area, because we do see a lot of large groups out in this park, a lot of big families. It's a great place to have a larger gathering, I think, and we want to keep it that way. right. Well, Jessica, do we have anything else we could touch on?
I think this covers it, and I think this was really great feedback. So thank you all for being here and your comments. If there's any last minute things, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I think we can move on to next steps, Will.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah, thanks everyone for your thoughtful comments. It really helps us a lot as we take our next steps, certainly. All right. So as we're moving forward here, kind of our next outreach, next steps, we do have the second pop-up event we mentioned. We're still, kind of workshopping and brainstorming some ideas for what that could be. But, a way to kind of get out and meet the community where you all are. Then looking at early September will be kind of our next steering committee, our final steering committee meeting where we'll go through more of the preferred master plan concept with those folks and get their feedback and kind of roll those in so that we can then, come back to you all, with a more solid iteration of this kind of preferred final master plan. And obviously, again, we'll be presenting this to you guys, in an attempt to get feedback. So, this won't be what we'll be showing you on the third meeting won't be the final. That'll still be your opportunity to give us feedback and for us to really wrap that in before we kind of put a bow on it and deliver kind of the final master plan sometime late November, December. And Jessica, was there anything else that I think that probably just about covers it, unless you can think of anything else I might have missed.
We also are releasing the second community survey, so there'll be more opportunity to provide your input. The links are on the slide here, and I just dropped them in the chat. So there'll be a series of similar questions to our polling questions today, asking about which options you prefer, what items you like out of each option. Please send around these links to all your friends and neighbors. The more survey respondents, the better.
Certainly.
And Stacy says, sign up for Councilman Flynn's monthly newsletter, and she posted a link also.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Great. Well, thanks again, everybody, for your time this evening. Again, it was really great input, really helpful. And as Jessica mentioned, if you could help us get the word out about the survey, we'd love to. I think we had 360 some responses to the first survey, which was awesome. And we got some great data, some great direction from that. And I think, with the concept plans being what a lot of these survey questions are about, we'd love for just as many, if not more, responses on this one. So please pass it along to friends and neighbors and whoever might be, a park user that you know.
Well, we actually had twice that many responses on the first survey.
Oh, wow. Yep. Okay.
So we, of course, welcome as many responses to this survey.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I had another survey for another project and I missed it. But lots of feedback and we love it. It's great and it helps us keep moving along confidently that we're serving you all the best we can with kind of the next steps. All right, well, I think that's all we had. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the evening.